What is going on? Welcome to a beautiful Saturday here in Nixa, Missouri. In my backyard, chilling, making some pattern welded steel. I have not gone live in a while. Thought I would throw this on and say hey to whoever hops on here. Come on, Forge. There we go. I have had the steel in the forge for 12 minutes and 40 seconds. So we are going to hang out for a little while this billet heats up. And then we're going to get to squishing. What's up, Sam? How are you, man? What are you up to? I've been hanging out, watching some of your videos. Your handle that you've been making, or your two handles, those turned out really cool. I also saw a video you did on fixing some fence posts that got washed out. That was pretty interesting. That's what I do for a living. I work for a fence company, so that was kind of cool, checking that out. Anyway, how you been, man? Trying to keep this billet flipped in here. That way, you know, it doesn't heat up too bad on one side. Getting gate access systems working. Nice, man, that's cool. I actually just started looking into that for my work. We don't do any automation where we're at, but we normally had a different company that used to do it. So like, we would make the gates, we would go and install big cantilever gates, or, you know, gates that were gonna get automated, but then we had to be like, oh, sorry, we'll make you your gate and we'll hang it, but we can't hook up the automation part because we just didn't do it. So that was kind of bogus, but we had a company to do it for us, and they recently went out of business, so it's something we've been thinking about trying to get into. But there's a lot of learning involved. Obviously, you've got concrete work, you've got electrical stuff, you got to run your conduit lines through your concrete. Then if you get into, you know, it just depends on what kind, but there's loops and all kinds of different things that you got to learn. And nobody knows anything about it where I'm at. I mean, a little bit, but anyway, thought it was kind of an interesting topic and something we may start doing at work. That fence got like 8,500 views. Nice, dude, that's cool. Yeah, stuff like that is interesting, even if you're not, you know, a fence person. Just, I feel like educational stuff in general does pretty well. You know, if you can't come up with anything good to make, like sometimes I run out of ideas, I just try to do something educational to teach people, you know, the little bit that I know, and those normally do decent anyway. But yeah, how's the knife making going? Are you still rocking out the knives and stuff? What do you got working on now? I've been pretty much kind of taking a break, honestly. The last 2 weeks I haven't really been out here much. I had to fix the Cricut machine for the wife, and I use it for my stencils for my maker's marks. So I kind of went and did that little project, but yes, he says he has not been doing much knife making lately. Me neither. And I thought, you know what, we need to fix that, because I was just waking up this morning itching to make something. I didn't know what I wanted to make. I wasn't sure what the heck I'm going to be doing with this Damascus, but I know I want to make it. So sometimes that's half the battle, you know, if you can get the billet thrown together and have something ahead of time, then when you get in that creative state where your imagination is giving you stuff to make, you'll already have something ready to go, if that makes sense. So anyway, that's what we're doing. It's been in here for 17 minutes. I normally hang out for, honestly, 25-30 minutes. I let it soak, and that typically holds true, at least for my little single burner forge. I'll throw you around and show you here. I basically just have the one single burner going, and I've got two separate forges. They're the same forge. I ended up buying the second one for the sword project, so I had something long. But typically this is all I do, is just the one single burner, and it does take a while to reach temperature. You can see right now we are just passing 1500 degrees, so we are not anywhere close just yet. The hard part about this too, you know, for anybody in here watching that's interested in learning, when you're doing pattern welded steel, or really any forge welding in a forge of high carbon or mild steel, you want the temperature to be up at least 2000 degrees, preferably 2200. So you really do have to get the atmosphere correct for it to work. So yeah, you basically have to reach the right temperature. You also have to have the right conditions, meaning you have to have an atmosphere in there that's not a whole lot of oxygen, so your gas is going to be turned up so that it's eating away all the oxygen, at least for doing pattern welded steel. That pretty much holds true. So it's just kind of a game you got to play a little bit, and sometimes, I don't know what happened there. I think my battery crapped out or something. Anyway, sometimes that's half the battle, is just getting the forge settings right and being patient before you start to press all this stuff. Sam says, I haven't had enough free time for knife making lately. I have a full-time set of kitchen blades that I'm making for a friend, but just no time. Yeah, man, I hear you. It is hard to get the time to do this sort of thing, especially this hobby. It is time consuming, especially a whole set of knives. One knife can be hard enough. I mean, that takes weeks for me to throw together a single knife. I can't even imagine doing a whole set of them. Hey, thanks for hanging, dude. Appreciate you getting on here and saying hey. Good to talk to you, dude. All right. Get this turned back around. It's a beautiful day. You can see the nice blue sky. It's probably 75 degrees out here right now, so it's pretty warm compared to what it has been. And it's just nice outside today. We got 20 minutes. Let's see. Alright, it's starting to look good. See a nice orange glow on it. So yeah, that's kind of the name of the game, is just get it in there and let it heat up. Sometimes it takes a while, but you have to be patient. You can't get ahead of yourself, pull it out and squish it without it being ready. So anyway, if you're in here, say hello. What are you up to this weekend? Hopefully you're doing something fun. Let me know what you're up to, who you are, and why you're hanging out with me. Let me know. it's probably been something like a month or two since I have fired up the squisher. And yeah, just turned it on to make sure it was working. I can give the 3 people that are in here the rundown. This is a electric log splitter that I bought on Amazon. And I think I paid $200 or $300 for this log splitter, and it essentially still works as a log splitter if you need it to. But pretty much what I did was stood it upright. I took off all the junk that I didn't need, and then at work I had a bunch of angle iron that was left over. This is some really good thick material, and pretty much just made a frame around the log splitter, and that way I can use it for my knife making and squishing metal. And it's a pretty easy build, honestly. It wasn't too difficult. I do have some fabrication experience. I know how to weld, that sort of thing. So as long as you kind of know your way around a welder and have a little bit of construction knowledge, it's fairly simple to make. And if anybody's interested in knowing how I put this together, I do have a video on my page of pretty much all the steps that I did to create this. So I have about $300 in making a forge press, and if you go out and look for one online or wherever, they're like, you know, $3,000 to buy one. Even some of the cheaper ones, you know, can be like $2,800 or $3,000 for a basic setup, and I just didn't have that to throw down. So you see a lot of people make these out of log splitters, and a lot of people will make them like in a horizontal way to where you still have to go and stick your billet in it kind of like vertically so that the 2 ends come and smush this way. And I saw one guy on YouTube who had made one similar to this where he just stood it up and tried to mimic like a real press and thought that that was pretty smart. So that's kind of what I'm basing the design off of, just looking at his video and kind of seeing the things that he did, and tried to basically do it like that. But yeah, I pretty much have it just a box or a pedestal at the bottom, and that way I could have access to the lever. So I actuate that with my foot, and that's what brings the squisher up and down. And then I've got the 4 pillars out of angle iron here that just kind of go around the outside of this, and then pretty much just welded a top to it, and then kind of came up with my own system of dies. These are just big square chunks of metal welded to a plate, and it's pretty easy to pop these on and off. I came up with this whole system here. I don't really even need this because it's just really not necessary. I do have these 2 little tabs that kind of keep it from popping off if it gets stuck. And then the top one is pretty easy. It's just a couple of little lips and another bigger plate with the same sort of a die or whatever. And then I've got, you know, the different directions so that they line up, so I kind of know, you know, where to stick them in at. Cosman has fish tanks. How fast does that move? So it actually moves pretty decent. Not as fast as like a store-bought press, but it does move fast enough to work. I'll turn it on and show you. So I try to, ahead of time, I'll get it up close to here, and then I'll grab my piece and go in and squish. So you can see it moves fast enough. It does take a little bit of time to travel up this way, but it does have a little locking thing down here where you can set it to where it will only come down a certain way if you want. I don't really think it's necessary, but that is a possibility. So it definitely moves fast enough. The question is, can it squish hard enough? And you know, for making backyard random pattern Damascus, absolutely it does. Can I do like really intricate mosaic stuff with this? I don't know. I don't think so. But then again, I've never really tried. I'd have to get like some squaring dies, maybe create a set of those, which I plan to do this year. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, for $300, it is a decent squisher. And in fact, we're getting pretty close to getting ready to squish it. I'll go ahead and set it up and let you guys see it in action. We are at 28 minutes. This has been in the forge, so we're probably close, honestly. Yeah, based on the color of the steel, I think we're there. So this will be the first squish that I'm going to do, and I pretty much try on the first one to pull it out super fast, get it in here quick, squish it really fast, and then I'll throw some borax on it really quick and stick it back in the forge. I'm really trying to like minimize the time that it's outside of the forge so that we don't get a bunch of scale buildup. So let's go ahead, we'll turn it on and we'll give it its first squish. So there we go, super fast in and out, and then just off camera, I used a little brush to brush off the sides, did a little bit of borax, and then straight back into the forge. And I've done this process several times, and this seems to be the best way to do it. I let the billet soak in a thing of WD-40 prior to sticking it in the forge. So I think that helps a lot. And if you notice too, my temperature, you can see we're at 1800 degrees and going back down. And a second ago, we were up about 1900 degrees, which, you know, not the best. It should be a little bit hotter. But because I'm just rocking the single burner, that's pretty typical for what I can reach with a big chunk of metal in there. If I'm hovering about 1900 degrees, I know it's pretty well good to get squished. That and just keeping an eye on the timer, making sure I'm hanging out in the heat for 30 minutes. And typically that works pretty good, so. And once we get the first squish done, like I said, I used the borax down here to just as a, you know, secondary precaution sort of thing. I don't know if it's necessary to do it, but I've always done it, so it's just something that I have continued to do. You know, once you get like a process down of doing this and you find a set of directions that works, it's really good to just stick with it and repeat the process. I just got done making a blade that has close to 100 layers for the outer cladding, and a 1080 core, and then 2 shims of nickel. So that's a lot of forge welding to pull off, and I was pretty successful. I think I've got the blade in here somewhere. Yeah, right here. So this is the one that I just got done making, and if I can get it to focus here, you'll be able to see it. Anyway, that's I think 90 layers of just random pattern Damascus. Here's the nickel shim, and then the core is just 1080 or 1084 maybe. But yeah, anyway, like I say, you get a good process down, and if you have good results, then you just try to repeat the process the best you can. Anyway, this is a really cool blade. Definitely one of my favorites. I did the guard out of just mild steel, and I got a nice piece of dyed and stabilized burl wood for the handle. Definitely a really cool blade. Yeah, it is definitely getting toasty outside, though. This is the first day that we've had a decent amount of heat. It's been in the 50s and 60s here in Missouri for the most part. But it's definitely warm today. It's probably getting close to 80 degrees. Let's see. What materials are you forge welding today? Great question. I am pretty much doing the leftovers off of that knife we just looked at. So it is a combination of 1080 steel, 15 and 20, and then I think I've got a few pieces of 80 CRV2 that are left over from another build. So we're just kind of mixing up some different steels to make some pattern welded steel. I don't really have a game plan as far as what I'm going to be making with it just yet. I don't really know, but like I was saying earlier, sometimes when you are not feeling creative, it's good to just make the billets ahead of time, and then that way when you get an idea, you'll already have something, you know, kind of ready to go. Go ahead and give it another squish here. Yeah, the flame really likes to change on you once you put the borax on there. It's kind of cool. But yeah, it's definitely warming up. It was just back up to 1900. Every time I take it out and then squish it and throw it back in, I think that thing is such a heat sink that it pulls the temperature back down. So I normally wait, you know, maybe 5 minutes in between each squish, maybe not quite that long. After you get going, you can normally start squishing fairly quickly, every 3 minutes or so. I'm going to run back in real quick and get a drink of some water, and I shall return. Hey, what do you know? People are still here. That's cool. Right on. We don't have a ton of people today, but that's all right. Sometimes the small groups are just as fun. If you guys have any questions related to knife making, related to whatever you're seeing me do, feel free to ask them. Or any questions in general about that. I decided to go with Orange Ice Prime Zero hydration drink. 5 calories. Not a sponsor, but maybe one day. You never know. Let's see. Fish Tanks. He asks, how many hours do you get out of one refill of propane? My guy, that is a fantastic question. That is a great question that I don't know if I can give you a solid answer to. I can tell you for me and what I do, one tank might last me maybe 2 or 3 Damascus sessions. And by that, I mean I have this thing running for probably 2 to 3 hours straight each session. That's about how much I tend to run it. So I don't know total. I mean, I guess maybe 5 or 6 hours, maybe 7 of straight running before it runs out. Kind of just depends on whatever project you're doing. If you're, let's say you're heating up just a bar of spring steel and you're forging a knife out of this doesn't take as long to heat up because it's smaller, so it would be a lot quicker. Because I have a bunch of these stacked up and layered up in the forge now, it just takes longer to heat up. But the good part about that is the bigger ones do take longer to heat up, but once they're heated up, it does stay relatively hot. It doesn't lose heat quite as bad as, say something small like this. But, propane can be costly. I'd say abrasives are probably the thing that I spend the most money on. And a close second would probably be propane. Really just depends on how much I'm out here goofing around. Because sometimes, like during the spring and fall and the summer when it's nice and I can get out here, I'm out here every weekend. Wow, a refill is $40 over here in Delaware. Wow, that's insane. Yeah, they're, I want to say right now at my gas station here in Southwest Missouri, they're $24.99. So yeah, that's whack, man. I think just in general, prices going up is crazy. It really is. Just compared to, average pay from, I don't know, 10 years ago when everyone was making $10 an hour to start out, and now it's like $20 an hour to start out. It's weird. Times have definitely changed pretty dramatically in the last probably 20 years, but really the last 10, I've noticed a just huge change. I'm 40, so I grew up seeing like my very first job was like washing dishes, and I think I made $9 an hour back in 2004. And yeah, 2000 to present, it's just $9 doesn't even cut it anymore. I don't even think that's the minimum wage here in Missouri. I can't remember what it is. It's like maybe 14 or 15 bucks an hour is minimum wage now. Pretty crazy. All right, I'm gonna throw you back over here. I'll try to get a close-up of the squish. That's about as close as I can get with my tripod. Hopefully that'll work for you. And you can see and probably have noticed these last 3 squishes, which are really just the first 3, I'm really not moving any metal. I mean, maybe a very small amount, but I'm not particularly spreading out any metal just yet. And that is pretty typical for me in my setup in this press. When you have the flat dies on here, it really just doesn't have the power to squish the metal down, at least with the flat dies. So really the first couple of presses, we're really focusing on closing up any of the gaps in the steel. And by that I mean, like, if you picture the billet sitting and you have multiple layers stacked up, you can kind of see right here like there's a little gap. And so that's kind of what we're trying to close up, are any little micro gaps, and we're just pressing all of the material and trying to get all the material to stick. And that's kind of the goal for the very first, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 passes. And once you get the material stuck, then we can switch the dies out to these, which are just like, you know, half round dies or drawing dies. And this will definitely start to move material. So I'll probably do one more press, maybe 1 or 2 more with the flattening dies, and then we'll get these drawing dies thrown in there, and you'll really be able to see the material start to move. Yeah, if you guys are just joining, say hello, don't be shy. Tell us your name, tell us what you're up to, and if you got any questions, man, shout them out. We're all just hanging out. We're all human beings trying to have the human experience and sharing it with one another. That's what it's about. Hopefully all you guys are having a good weekend out there. We got Fish Tanks. He's from Delaware. We had Sam in here earlier. If you don't know who he is, he's another YouTube guy who just recently started trying to make knives himself. I say trying, he is making knives, and he's pretty good at it. He kind of, like me, started at ground zero with minimal tools and is pretty much self-taught, like myself. So it's definitely a super fun hobby to get into. You don't have to have all of this stuff. You certainly don't need a forge press. I guess you don't really even need a forge. I mean, eventually it'd be good to get one, but you know, you kind of just need the bare minimum. Maybe a angle grinder, some sort of a torch, a way to heat up the steel to harden it. My point is that you don't need to dump a bunch of money into the hobby to see if you like it, which is cool. I actually started, the very first knife I ever made was right there on the corner of that concrete. I had a little thing from work that I was using for an anvil, and I had a piece of rebar that I was just heating up in a homemade forge out of like coals and a blow dryer. And oh, what's up, Bryce, my man? How's it going, dude? Bryce Paoli, the what was it? Oh man, the Paoli Hayholdy or something. Remember that? My guy. Bryce is a heck of a guy. I used to work with him, and he actually went on to do bigger and better things. So I haven't seen him or talked to him in a while. I remember that rebar knife, he says. Yeah, he does. It was a glorified turd. It didn't really cut anything, and it was about as ugly a knife as you'd ever seen, but it was very precious to me. It was my very first one, and it was wicked awesome. In fact, I might even still have it in here. I don't know if I do, but if I do, I will try to find it and show you guys. Bryce, how have you been, man? What you been up to? Hopefully you're doing well. how's the church gig going and all of that? I think that was the last place I saw you. He invited me to his church, and I brought the family out there. We had a good time. And Valhalla, what's up, dude? How are you, man? Thanks for coming on and saying hey. I appreciate it. I did not see the rebar knife in there. I don't quite know where it went, but you could just take my word for it. It was a beauty, an absolute beauty. All right, I'll let you view from this angle, and you'll be able to see, hopefully, my fancy footwork with the pedal, so you know how that works. Probably won't be able to leave it here for long because it's kind of hot. I think the wind's blowing up here. On there and get it back in here. Woo. Yeah, you can tell that it does take a while for this forge to heat up. It will eventually get there. Earlier we were rocking about 1800 degrees. Right before I brought it out, it was probably somewhere around 2000, I would say, pretty close anyway. And then it creeps back down whenever you put the cold steel back in there. Let's see. Valhalla says, I guess a bunch of my friends are regular viewers, Sam and SK and Bevel and you, etc. The French squish, I like it. Yeah, I appreciate you coming on and saying, hey man, it's been a while. I was telling some of the other fellas, it's been a minute since I've been out here to do any knife stuff. Probably the better part of 3 weeks or so. Just kind of taking a little bit of a break. But such a nice day today. I thought, you know, today would be perfect to get out here and do some squishing. So that is what we're up to. What are you up to, my guy? What kind of stuff are you working on? You making some blades? My last one that I made was for the Eric Rivers Hidden Tang Challenge, and I have not made one since. So I know that was really only about 3 weeks ago, but yeah, haven't really done a whole lot since then. I think we are probably safe to go ahead and start drawing this thing out a little bit, so I'll probably switch the dies over here in a minute. Valhalla says, etching some Damascus billets. Let's go. What do you do? Are you hand forging your billets, or do you have a press? I don't think I've ever asked you. I think I probably did three Damascus billets by hand back before I had this thing, and 3 was plenty. That was 3 too many. And I said to myself, okay, this is fun. Damascus is cool, but doing it by hand, that is a workout. And I think that's why I decided to invest in trying to make this thing. I'm utilizing my mentor's shop. He has 100 and 250 pound hammer. Well, there you go. That's the way to do it. Doing it by hand, it's doable, but man, you got to really love that kind of labor to do it frequently, because it really is a lot of time, I should say, really. I mean, anybody can go and beat the hammer out on some hot steel, but it really does just take a lot of time to even squish one bar or one stack or one billet out flat, and then you only have, you know, however many layers, 10 or 20, and you got to go and cut it and restack it and do it all over again. It is it's frustrating if you're just doing it by hand. Let's see, I'm trying to make 130 pounds of dragon scale Damascus. Dude, that's what's up. That's cool. Yeah, I really need to take some time to learn more about patterns. I am definitely not super knowledgeable about it. I can make the standard, you know, random pattern Damascus. I got that. That's fairly easy. I've tried the ladder pattern, and that's straightforward, obviously. Raindrop I've done. Outside of those three, I really haven't tried anything else. So I'm really just kind of getting into it. I was telling some of the guys earlier, I want to this year take some time to make some squaring dies for these, so I can start, you know, crushing some C's and W's and trying to experiment a little bit with some of that. Probably go ahead and squish this out once more, and then we'll throw in the drawing dies. I definitely think we're good. It has certainly stuck together, at least I hope so. And we're probably ready to move on. Sometimes what I do is I'll tape my dies and stick them over by the forge to kind of get them heated up a little bit first. And I feel like that helps a little bit to not suck out all of the heat. So I'll set these over here for just a second. Kind of just do this deal here where I got them resting by the fire, and hopefully that will help a little bit anyway. I don't think I've asked you in your comment section before, do you have Discord? I do not. I pretty much just have the YouTubes. I have like a Facebook page, but I don't ever use it. And then YouTube, and that's pretty much it. I'm kind of lame, man. I was born in 1986, and you'd think a lot of my friends who are 40 kind of are into all that stuff, but I just never really was. Not that I'm anti-Discord or anti-social media. I think it's cool and good. It can be anyway. I just kind of stick with what I know, and I know how to make YouTube videos and do that. I always look at some of the guys that do YouTube videos who say, oh, follow me on YouTube, follow me on Instagram, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Discord, follow me on Facebook. And I don't know, I suppose that's good, but it's just, for me, YouTube is the way to go. I just try to stick with the one and call it good. Sometimes it's, you know, when I do like a video that does well, it's sometimes can be hard to keep up with all of the comments and people and such. So that's plenty for me. Most of us didn't use Discord before we made this group chat. We have 24 blacksmiths in private round table chat, including E and Z on occasion. Nice. Heck yeah, man, that's awesome. Yeah, that is where the social media shines. You get to create a little community, and especially for something like this where you can pass knowledge to one another, that is just priceless. You know, to be honest, would I have ever started making knives without seeing it done on YouTube first? Probably not. I just happened to come across one of Eric Rivers' videos one time of him making a knife. And this was before I started making knives. And I watched the video and I thought, dude, that is a wicked cool knife, number one. But number two, that looks like something I could do. Why not? And it looks like fun. So I owe my credit goes to him for inspiring me to make knives. And, you know, is it something I'll do forever? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. I tend to have hobbies that last for years or months or decades. Some last longer than others, but yeah, knife making is just cool. It's a lot of fun. It's a great way to get out and do something physical. It's good for creativity. There's just, it's just a good all-around hobby. Plus, you know, having a knife is handy. It really is. Valhalla says, if you ever wanted to join, I could email you a private link. Nice, man. I appreciate that. I'm not opposed to it, dude. I don't, I would have to, I guess, make a Discord thing. I know my son, who is 13, he uses Discord to talk to his friends. So it could definitely be something I would look into. But yeah, that sounds cool. I've been forging since 2 years before F&F started. Over 13 years, half of my life. Nice. Yeah, see, for me, I think I started in 2023, the beginning of 2023. So I've got about 3 years into this. So, you know, 3 years is a good start, but I definitely have a long way to go. I'm certainly not a master at this. So, it's really hard to tell if I got this in the right way. I think I do, so we'll put that one there. And this one up here. Oh yeah, those are good and warm now, so we should be good. And you'll really be able to see the material start to move now that we've got these rounding or drawing dies in here. Try to get you a good view so you can see that. Yeah, so hopefully you're able to see that. It definitely starts to move a little better once you get the rounded dies in there. Oh, it depends on how good you want to be or want. I got a long way to go too. It takes about 20 years to know what you're doing, I've always said. Yeah, no doubt, man. That is that's a good way to put it, for sure. Just when you think you know, you realize you don't know nothing. I will say too, you know, raw dogging it is cool, and I typically do, until you start drawing out the material, and then tends to fall down. You can see some of the forge scale down there. Yeah. Definitely keeps you awake. Nothing like some hot forge scale on your toes. Gotta love it. yeah, so anyway, we are 50 minutes in, and we already have the material forge welded together, and we're starting to draw it out. So it does take a while. I mean, an hour. I've been at this, and we at least have some progress. We have the material stuck together, but it's still pretty much a big long rectangle. I guess you can't really see it in there, but yeah, it just takes a while. I think if I had a good like coal iron 12-ton, it would definitely move quicker. You'd have twice the tonnage, and I'm sure that makes a major difference. Just seeing some people in their videos use it, it looks like it's plenty powerful to really do whatever you want. But with this one, it just, I don't know, it's not as strong as it could be. It's certainly strong enough and way better than your hand or your arm and a hammer. But it would be nice to have a little bit more power, and maybe one day I will. But I figured, you know, this was a pretty good way to get into this to start for keeping the budget good. I think the only thing I paid for in this was the actual log splitter, which was, I want to say maybe $280, $290, $300, something like that. And then all of the scrap steel was just leftovers from stuff from work that I got for free. So that worked out pretty good. He says, I love to forge in sandals and shorts. Dude, me too. It's hot, you know? You don't need the boots. You don't need the jeans. You're already sweating. It's like, yeah, why not? I just ground the tip of my right index finger off on a live stream the other day, testing out my 2x72 build with a 36 grit. Nice. That's awesome. I was grinding some bevels a while ago, and I was trying to smooth them out, and I kept coming up to the belt like this, and I was holding like this, but the 240 grit belt kept rubbing my knuckles, and it didn't really hurt much that day, but the next day, man, I had like each knuckle had skin removed, and yeah, that was pretty cool. That's awesome. You're building, testing out my new 2x72 build. Are you building it yourself? That sounds awesome. And if so, what are you doing? Are you finding just scrap material, or what do you got going on? Because that sounds cool. I thought about building my 2x72 from sourced materials, but I just decided that this package from Housemade was the way to do it. At least for me. It's just so nice that all this stuff was already pre-cut and milled out, and it's really just hard to beat that. And, you know, I think all the steel was $1,000, and then you sourced your VFD and motor. So it's kind of cool because you can do it in pieces. You know, like this was the first thing I bought, and I tucked it away for a while, and then I went ahead and bought this, and then after that I went and got the motor. And so it's kind of something that you can buy in different pieces and parts over time as you can afford it, which is cool. Dad did most of the building, but yes, used a treadmill motor, but that seems to want to overheat and shut off. Dad thinks it's because the variable speed switch isn't right for it. Okay. Yeah, I've heard of people using treadmill motors, and that's a good option, I think, for a home build or whatever. Let me clean this lens off. It looks like it's dirty. Hopefully that cleaned it up some. Anyway, yeah, doing stuff like that, I really enjoy. Any type of fabrication work, that's right up my alley. Well, you can hear the thing just shut off, and I tripped it because I was holding it down for too long, and that does happen. Luckily for me, on this particular forge, or this log splitter rather, there is a built-in fuse down here meant exactly for that. So if it is stuck under load for too long, it automatically trips so that it doesn't overdo it or whatever. So it's actually a pretty cool feature. Plus, the big part of the reason why I picked this particular log splitter was because it also was a one-hand operation. If you look up log splitters, particularly electric ones online, you'll see a bunch that require you to hold something down with one hand and then use your other hand to actuate it. And so I thought, you know, to avoid having to figure out how to get around that, I would just pick this one, which is able to just operate it by the little lever under here, which is what I have hooked up to the pedal here. It just moves that little arm back and forth. But anyway, whenever this happens, you just come down here and it basically resets the fuse and you're back in business. And it really does only happen if you hold it down for too long. And it, you know, sometimes I accidentally do it. But it's kind of a nice feature, I guess, because then you don't over squish and, you know, have the potential to bust a line or screw up whatever's in there that makes it go. Let's see. I'm building a twin ribbon burner forge that'll have about 7.5 by 20 inch of space after the insulation is added. I already insulated it once, but found out the refractory stores sold me the wrong stuff. Had to tear it all back out. Wasted $80 in 2 days. Dang, dude, yeah, that stinks. Sorry to hear that, but that's okay. Sometimes that's how you know, learn. Even if the store is like, oh yeah, no, this is definitely the stuff you want. Now at least you know. I'm a big believer in trial by error. Sometimes figuring out the right way to do it, you gotta do it the wrong way several times. So may not be too bad of a thing. All right, where are we at here? I think this thing is low on battery or something, because it is not acting right. Although we technically don't need to know the temperature anymore now that it's forge welded. And in fact, once I do get the forge weld set, I tend to crank it down a little bit. And that way we can use a little bit more air and less gas. Which in the long run, I'm sure will help save propane. Anyway, so yeah, that's pretty much the name of the game. You just keep doing this, you know. Once you get the weld set, then I just go to town drawing them out with the rounding dies. And then eventually, once I get the bar stretched out long enough, I'll start widening it out some. And sometimes I'll use a combination of things for that. Sometimes I'll use the dies and just turn them around. I recently made this, the ball hitch die. This works really well to pinch the material. So I'll take turns flopping the billet over on this thing, and that works pretty good. So yeah, anyway, this year I definitely want to experiment a little bit more in the die department and maybe make some more dies for it. Probably go ahead and give this another squish, and then we'll probably wrap it up. I don't have that much battery left on my phone. These live streams just drain it. I don't know why, but Anyway, I'm glad that I've done this and got to say hey to some of you guys. I really appreciate you guys hanging out. If you're still in here, make sure to like, and if you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button. I think I probably just tripped a breaker in the garage. That also happens sometimes. Anyway, I appreciate you guys hanging out. I'm gonna run back in there and flip the breaker back on and get back at this. Really appreciate you guys hanging out with me today and watching, and look forward to making more knife-related content. Appreciate you guys, and we'll catch up with you soon. Hope you guys have a great rest of the weekend. Peace.